pile of butt. I'm in a hotel in College Station, Texas, and I wanted to make a video kind of summing up like my time in Baja, specifically from the point of view of a woman that is traveling there by herself, especially if you're driving around there by yourself. You didn't just fly to one specific place or something like that. And I wanted to do it before I forgot. um, so I think what I'll do is just start from when I first crossed the border and then go to when I crossed it to get back up to the US. So I'd already been on the road for about a month before I came down to Baja, and I decided to cross at San Isidro, which is in San Diego. So San Diego, there's actually two crossings. There's Otay Mesa and there's San Isidro. I decided to go with San Isidro because it was my first time crossing the border by myself, my second time ever. And I was really kind of nervous about it. And that's like the biggest, most popular border, and I felt like I would feel safer crossing there because it's just more common, and I think it's open like 24/7. So I did a lot of research ahead of time in terms of what I needed to be in Mexico and to cross the border, papers, that sort of thing. Stella needed vet records. I needed Mexican car insurance. I needed to make sure I had my passport. And I knew that I either needed to buy my FMM tourist visa online ahead of time or make sure I stopped at the border and got it before I crossed over. And then I tried to make copies of as many things as I could just in case. Because sometimes it's better to have a copy on you than the original when you're, traveling in a foreign country. So I spent all this time kind of getting stressed out trying to get everything ready because I had no idea what to expect. I would say also make sure that you know exactly where you're going, like how to get through the border, like directions wise. For me, I just stayed in the right-hand lane so that I could pull over to the immigration building to get my FMM. And it was a little confusing. I was in the wrong line at first. I was in the line to declare stuff, which I didn't want to do. And so I had to ask a couple people before I figured out where to get my FMM, which cost like $30. And it was good for like 180 days. So after that though, you just cross through. Like you don't get stopped. Nobody asks you questions. You don't have to show any of your documents, nothing like that. Like we literally just went through and that was it. I was in Tijuana. So, and then for me, it was sort of a pickle because I have AT&T, and if I wanted my phone to work in Mexico, I would have had to buy a special plan, which was very expensive, and I didn't want to do that. So I knew once I crossed over, my phone wouldn't work. I could receive text messages that people sent me, but I couldn't send them. I couldn't make phone calls. I could see phone calls coming in. I could still, of course, log into Wi-Fi or whatever. But once I got settled there, within maybe my first week there, I had my Airbnb host take me to a Telcel in Ensenada, which is an hour south of Tijuana, and help me buy just a cheap phone. I think it was 200 pesos, so $10, plus maybe the cost of the phone or something like that. It was 300 pesos total. So that way I could talk and text, but I guess the plan I got, I could only make local, Mexican calls. I couldn't use my Mexican phone to call an American number, text an American number. But I had WeChat already installed, the app already installed on that phone, and so that was another way that I could communicate with people on my Mexican phone. And then every month I would just add more money to it. So that worked out okay. It actually did help in a couple of situations. But of course, I didn't feel as comfortable as I would have if I could have just used my phone and made any kind of call I wanted or text or whatever. So okay, I got to Ensenada. I was told to just be very careful about driving. Make sure you're not breaking any traffic laws or anything like that. because that will make you a target for getting pulled over. In Ensenada, there's a couple of tolls that you go through, or maybe just one or two tolls that you go through. So it's always good to have some cash on hand, either pesos or I think they take American dollars. And so I was staying in a gated community because obviously, like being there for the first time, I just felt a lot safer. And it was right on the ocean. And my host family helped me out a lot. So there's a lot of places you could stay in Ensenada. This was a few kilometers outside of Ensenada, which I also kind of liked because the town, it's not massive, but to me it felt big and it was just very busy. And then traffic wise, yeah. So like to me it felt almost like a big city. And it's a touristy city, and apparently it can also be like a dangerous, like I would hear people would post stuff about people getting murdered and stuff. So I never felt unsafe when I was there, but I was only there during the day and I was often with my Airbnb host. I would just go there to run errands or whatever. So that would be my big thing as a female solo traveler there. Don't go anywhere by yourself at night. Don't drive at night. That was another thing because a lot of the roads aren't in good condition. It's harder to tell at night, and oftentimes animals run into the road at night too. So from there, I drove all the way down. So we're talking, this is like North Baja near the border. I drove all the way down to the tip of Baja by myself, and I spread it out over 4 days so I wasn't overworking myself during the day in terms of like drive time. So my first stop, and I was really nervous because I didn't know what to expect. So my first stop was, I decided just to get outside of the main part of like northern Baja. I just wanted to get down a little bit farther away from all of the traffic. So I stayed in a little town called El Socorro, which it was like a 3 or 4 hour drive that day. And I found this place on Airbnb, and it was fine. It was just one night, and I have I had Stella with me. It's her butt. Sorry. And I was nervous about the next day because I was going to go through a long stretch. Like there's some long stretches that you hit without gas stations, that sort of thing. And I remember my first like real day of driving, I hit a very long stretch. It was like 200 miles where there was really nothing. I hit like a couple of restaurants, like small little restaurants or whatever. But I didn't feel comfortable stopping at them because I was worried my Spanish wouldn't be good enough, and I just wanted a bathroom. And I ended up like peeing on the side of the highway because I had to go so bad, and there's no gas stations, like there's nothing. So you have to make sure you gas up. I brought a can with a little bit of gas in it just in case. And make sure you have like food and snacks and stuff like that. What else? Normally the gas stations will have bathrooms that you can access. They're like outside the building. You don't have to go inside like the store to use the bathroom, which I liked. But I would say always have hand sanitizer on you, and always bring like some tissues or your own toilet paper, because the bathrooms might not be stocked at all. You might get toilet paper but there's no soap or water, or there's no toilet paper but there's water but no soap, that kind of thing. So be prepared. And then I stayed in Guerrero Negro the next night, which is a pretty small town as well. A lot of these towns, like the hotel I was in, it was on a corner on the main street, so it was pretty noisy with like street noise until like midnight pretty much. And also like Netflix there, a lot of times, unless the TV has like a VPN, Netflix is in Spanish. So, and there's no English dubbed or like English subtitles, just FYI. But my Netflix on my laptop still worked. Like it was still the, American version with English. Um, and then, so from there, oh, and Guerrero Negro is when I started noticing military checkpoints. So going down, I only got stopped one time outside of Loretto, and they just ask you, um, where are you going? Where are you coming from? Like, they might ask you, like, what are you doing here? Are you a tourist? That kind of thing. And they also might ask you to roll down your windows and open your trunk, and they just kind of look, type of situation. And usually they're younger guys, like in their 20s, and they're usually they were like all nice. So when I left Guerrero Negro, that's when I started to feel like I was in Baja Sur, the southern part of Baja, because I hit the Bay of Conception, Bahia de Concepcion, which is gorgeous. And so you can start seeing the ocean on your drive a lot more. So, but it still feels like very remote for the most part. So any chance you have to gas up, do it, and use pesos as much as possible. I did end up using a credit card a couple times if I felt comfortable, like if my gut was telling me I don't think the attendant's gonna like scam me or anything. And I didn't have any issues, because that's another thing they warned me about, was that at the gas stations sometimes there's different ways that the attendant could scam you if they wanted to. And as far as I know, I never got scammed. Just always make sure that before they start pumping your gas, it's set to 0. And some of them will even tell you, like, look, it's at 0, but just make sure it's at 0. And then pay in pesos if you can, and tip them like 10 pesos. I would always ask them to check my tire pressure too. And then they usually will clean your window. So yes, in Loretto, I got stopped at a military checkpoint going in, and I noticed a couple of the guys, it's like they were very professional, except they would also ask me like if I was alone, and they'd say, do you have a husband? Do you have a boyfriend? Which, not really sure why that's relevant. Some of them just seemed surprised that I was traveling by myself there, but they were like pretty nice for the most part, like friendly. And they would always ask me about Stella. Loretto was really nice. I felt very safe in Loretto. Loretto is where my Airbnb was a disaster. Like, someone had recommended the Oasis Hotel, and I looked at it. I was like, yeah, this is really nice. I think I would like this, but it's a little bit pricier. So I found an Airbnb that was like half the cost, and it had gotten like good reviews. I booked it, and then the day of, she messages me and changes the check-in instructions. She said, instead of someone meeting you there when you arrive, we're just going to leave the key for you, and we're going to leave it here. But I couldn't see it because I couldn't, I was in the middle of nowhere. I had no Wi-Fi, nothing like that, so I couldn't check my Airbnb message to see where she left the key. And so I got there, it's like 90s, end of the day, I'm tired, Stella's tired, we're hot, and she's not responding to like the WeChat messages. And so finally I told her, I was like, look, if I can't get inside here, no one's gonna come help me, I'm gonna go to a hotel and you can reimburse me. And then she said, oh, I'm sending someone over to come help you. Someone did arrive. She didn't speak a lick of English. But she showed me around the inside. It was very hot inside. No one had thought to turn the air conditioning on before I arrived. But other than that, the place itself was fine. It was missing a few essentials. My biggest issue was that the air conditioning never cooled the place off. And even though it's a pretty small town, it was really loud outside. It was right on the corner, and the doors, it was like a double door. The front was a double door, but the two doors didn't completely go all the way together. So there was like a gap, and you could hear and see like street traffic. So it was very loud. And then at about midnight, I was still lying in bed. I wasn't tired. I was lying in bed, and I hear this loud crash, like a car had crashed into the building just right there. Like the next door neighbors were connected to this Airbnb by a small gate. And the electricity immediately went out as soon as the crash happened, which was great. I look out the window. It's a military vehicle, a large military vehicle. Several police or like military guys were standing outside with their guns, yelling. So I had no idea what was going on. If they had done that on purpose, by accident, like I didn't know why they had crashed. And the car that was in front of my Airbnb was totaled. Like they hit that car somehow. There was like cement and plaster and all sorts of stuff on the ground that had fallen off the neighbor and this Airbnb's like roof and building. And so I was just like, okay, you know what? I cannot stay here. And this is where my Mexican phone really came in handy. I was able to use it to call my Airbnb host from Ensenada that had helped me so much. She picked up right away and she found a hotel that would let me come check in at like 1 a.m. So I had to pack up all my stuff in the dark, load it into the car in the dark, get Stella in the car. And I knew I had a map of where the hotel was, but I didn't have like GPS telling me how to get there. I had to figure it out. Like I didn't know these streets. It was dark. The town was completely deserted. And so I was just really nervous. Like I didn't think it was a dangerous town, but I still just felt like this is not an ideal situation. But I found the place, got inside, everything was fine. And so I stayed there for the night. And then my second and last night there, I did end up staying at the Oasis Hotel, which is where I should have just stayed to begin with. And it was amazing. I loved it. Like I really spent my last day there like I made up for all the like crappy stuff that had just happened. So and then once I left there, I drove to El Pescadero, which is a town near Todos Santos. It's a very small beach town, kind of like a surfing town. I had to go through La Paz, which is the capital of Baja Sur. It's a big city. And then, I mean, people love that place. Like there's, they love it there. There's these really beautiful beaches and a lot of stuff to do and whatnot. But I didn't really like it. It was just like a really busy, traffic-y city. And I just got a bad feeling about it for some reason. So I just tried to get through as soon as I could. But El Pescadero, there's a lot of tourists there. It was very small, I liked it. I liked Todos Santos. What else? And then from there, so I was having some little Airbnb issues in El Pescadero, so I decided to leave there a week early and go to my last destination in Baja Sur, which is Los Barriles, which is just directly on the other side of the peninsula, but you can't drive directly through because the mountains, so you kind of go up and over like that. So I did that. And by then I was feeling very comfortable in being in Baja, kind of knowing what to expect more. And so the drive there was really nice. It was just a couple hours. Los Barriles, there's a lot of like expats there, a lot of Americans, another small town. And it's I was there during off season. Most people come like in fall and winter. So summertime is actually pretty dead for them. But I liked it there. I had another cool Airbnb host that gave me a lot of tips and information and helpful stuff. And I really liked it there. Baja, just FYI, even though like Mexico, things are a lot cheaper in Mexico, I would say that kind of is true, but not when it comes to Baja. Like that's true when it comes to like mainland Mexico, but Baja is just as expensive as America or as California in a lot of cases. Like gas there, I think was about $4 a gallon, give or take. So stuff there is expensive. Don't expect to go and like have it be super cheap. Sorry. And then I made the journey all the way back up, but I decided this time I was going to go up. So getting to Guerrero Negro, there's only one way to get all the way up to Guerrero Negro, which is about the halfway point in Baja. From there, you drive a little bit and you can either go back to, it will take you back towards like Ensenada, or you can go the other way and stay on the east coast of Baja. And I decided to do that since I hadn't driven that way before. And I wanted to check it out. And it was really nice. I liked it a lot, actually. And I chose also to do that because I was going to cross back in Mexicali instead of San Isidro, because getting back up to America from San Isidro, it's like a lot of craziness, or it was at that time. Like sometimes people would sit in line and wait for 4 hours to cross back or more. And there was just a lot of craziness going on. A lot of people, it was like, I don't know, they were cutting out a lot of the lanes or like closing off a lot of the lanes. And so I just didn't want to have to deal with all that. I decided Mexicali was the way to go, even though I wasn't as familiar about it with it. I decided to just, my very last night in Baja, I stayed in San Felipe, which was only about 2 hours from the border. And so I left around 10:30. Right? 9:30? I don't remember. But I think my goal was I wanted to get to the border around like 10 or 10:30, but I actually didn't end up getting there until 11 or 11:30. Mexicali is a really big city though. And again, I did a lot of research about the crossing. Like I knew what I couldn't bring back over with me, that sort of thing. And someone sent me a link to get that had like step-by-step instructions of what road to take, like exactly how you cross the border. So I didn't get in the wrong lane, because there's different lanes for different things if you have different passes, sort of thing. And I was just in the general lane. So I pulled up to the border. There was only 2 people ahead of me, which was amazing. They didn't have to open their trunks. The guy didn't look through any of their stuff. They just went. When he got to me, I think again, because I was a solo female traveler, he seemed like suspicious of me. He's like asking me what I was doing in Baja, if I was there by myself, what I did for a living, why. He was also confused as to why, like that I was from Texas for some reason. I don't know why. He thought I'd rented the car in Texas. I was like, no, I'm from Texas. And he's like, oh, why are you crossing here, or something like that. It was kind of weird. I don't know why he was so suspicious of me, but he did have me open the trunk. He looked through it for a minute, but all in all, it still only took about 5 minutes, and then I was through. So that was amazing. But yeah, my recommendation in general would be just go with your gut. If you don't feel safe or comfortable, don't do something. Don't go anywhere by yourself at night. There was a couple of times where I had met this other girl that was traveling solo and in Los Barillas, and we were in the town driving around at night a little bit, but that's only, I never would do that by myself, and I wouldn't have done that probably. I would have done that maybe in Loreto and El Pescadero, like the very small towns with a lot of expats and stuff, and just drive extra slow. Oh, I totally missed this. When I was driving, remember how I said that La Paz gave me a bad feeling? When I was driving back up to head back north, just minding my own business at a stop light. I was like behind other people at a stoplight. Light turns green. I start to go, and all of a sudden I hear like the whoop whoop, and I look over and there's a cop on a motorcycle telling me to pull over. So I pull over, and I'm like, what did I do? And he said, you're on your cell phone, and so I have to give you a ticket. And I was holding my cell phone. It had my Google Maps on it because I was not familiar with the city. I had a turn coming up that I didn't want to miss. I tried to explain that to him, and he was like, sorry, like, we're very strict about that. You cannot have your phone or be on your phone when you're driving here. And I asked him, how much is the ticket? And he said 2,000 pesos, which is about $100, which seems kind of, I don't know, to me that seems kind of steep for Mexico especially, but I was like, whoa. He said, you can either pay me now or pay at the station. And I knew, because I read other posts from people, that was a red flag, because You don't pay tickets by paying the cop on the spot. Like, that's just not how it works. That's how it works when they're trying to scam you. So I had a pretty good feeling he was trying to scam me. He just saw I was American and thought, oh, I can make some money off of her. So I said, I will pay at the station. And even though he said the station was closed when he first told me I could pay there, another red flag, because why would their police station, be closed on a weekday, middle of the day? So yeah, I said, well, I can pay at the station. He had my license. And he was asking me some questions. Like, he knew I was a tourist. He knew that I'd come from Los Barillas, that I was there just like on vacation or whatever. And so he had my license. And he said, okay, if you want to pay at the station, I'm going to hold on to your license until you pay your ticket. Another red flag. And so immediately I said, no, I'll take my license and I'll follow you to the station so you know that I go. And he looked at me for, like, we went back and forth. This was like after a few minutes of talking. And he just kind of stopped and he like looked at me really like intensely, like he was staring at me, like he was trying to figure out what to do, because he could tell that I was not going to give him any money. Like, he's not going to make any money off of me. And he goes, do you live in La Paz? And I was like, no, I'm a tourist. I've never been to La Paz before. And he's like, oh, you're a tourist. Even though he already knew that. He said, oh, well, if you're a tourist, then you don't get a ticket. And I think that was just him trying to save himself from, like, because I knew, like, if he really thought I deserved a ticket, he would have given me one, So I'm pretty sure I missed out on being, lucked out, I should say, on being scammed. So just be very aware of your surroundings, especially in the big cities. I would say, yeah, like, don't, a lot of people when they're traveling, they kind of want to be like friendly and like talk to strangers. And I would say be careful, especially as a woman doing that. Just be careful who you talk to, who you interact with. Make sure you have all your documents. Just do a lot of research before you go. That way you also know, like, because Baja's a big place, you'll know what you want to check out, what, what's available to you, kind of plan as much as you can, and just be prepared. Take good care of your car. Oh, thank you. And find some good people. Like, I had my Airbnb hosts that were very reliable and helpful, and like, really helped me out in a couple of circumstances, but also showed me around, gave me good advice. And yeah, just try to find good places to stay, within your budget, places where you're going to feel safe and comfortable, that sort of thing. And I think those are my main tips. I know it took me 30 minutes to explain that, but and find Facebook groups. There's Talk Baja, and there's a bunch of Baja groups, especially if you search like a specific town or city there's probably a Facebook group, and that way you can join and know what's going on in that town, ask questions, that sort of thing, and that's been really helpful. So with that, Stella and I will sign off. And other than that, I had a great time. Like, that's part of traveling, the good and the bad. It was a great learning experience, and I really hope that I get to go back again someday. Now I will feel comfortable, traveling there. And I think traveling there as a female especially is like an awesome thing to do. Just be prepared. So